And we're live. Thank you all
Boom!
so
Roasted!
much. Yeah, right. Alex is just ready already to start going. You're like, it happened. It's official. We're live.
5 minutes early. Everybody, you're all late. Anybody not in the chat right now, you're roasted, you're late. Where are you guys?
That's so funny. Alex is like, we got to start as soon as possible just so I can start roasting people in the chat that everyone else is late. What are you doing?
There's only 41 people here. Everybody's late. I'm sick of it. Why
Dude.
aren't these viewers on time?
Dude, I don't know, man. I think they just take after the content creators they follow. Oh man, but we've got some fun things we're going to talk about. Alex is going to discuss all of his scalping methods that have made him successful. Yeah, right. No, we're going to talk about a lot of things, man. We're going to talk about GameStop. We're going to talk about Costco not selling product anymore in person. We're going to talk about Final Fantasy. There's quite a bit of things actually discussed today. So before jumping into it, as always, make sure you leave a like, comment down below, subscribe. Really helps out the YouTube channel. Obviously, if there are any spots open, make sure to check it out at the wholesale program. Links down in the description below for that. We're still sold out, sadly, but make sure to check out from time to time or message me, and then I can try and notify you when a spot opens up. And then, as always, Alex has his channel. He's got his lives. He's going 5 days a week now. You said
5 days, man.
For doing breaks.
We are grinding.
Yeah, he is the definition of a grinder over here, ladies and gentlemen. So
people need their Pokemon cards, dude.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, I guess let's just kind of roll right into it. I mean, where do you kind of want to start? Do you want to start talking about what's going on with Costco more than anything, or kind of how do you want to go?
Well, someone just said, is the Costco thing for real? What info do you have? Do you have like legitimate real sources?
Well, so here's what I know for fact, and this was just reported on by PokeBeach. We'll talk about GameStop first, I guess. GameStop discontinues Pokemon TCG pre-orders at stores and websites. So we know for a fact that, and I don't blame them, right? Like, as much as people hate to say this, but there's not really a point of doing pre-orders in this market, right? Like why? If you're watching right now and seeing the prices of everything, it's going up. And same thing goes for pre-orders, right? Journey Together right now. I don't know if you guys are watching it, but it's at $220 right now in pre-order.
Under. I want an over under in the chat. Is Safari Zone going to honor my pre-orders at $100 a box on Journey Together?
Holy crap. They'll honor it. I don't know, actually. That's a good point. From what I've been told, they're not the typical ones that like to, dishonor it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we've never been to a point where it's literally 100% over market by the time it gets there. That's crazy.
Yeah. I think they're just doing what they always do, which is pre-sell product as early as they can so that they can have interest-free loans and take people's money up front. So I think for them, I don't see why they would want to burn that bridge with people because I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, let's get, again, like, I know people hate it. Let's be adults. Let's stop being the, childish, kids that want to whine and cry about everything. Think about it from a regular business perspective, guys. If you have a bunch of wild, crazy idiots causing all these problems in your store, right, lining up outside of it, making your employees scared, hurting each other, becoming an insurance risk, do you want that happening at your store? No. What's the most logical explanation or course of action? You sell it anymore. It's that simple. Like, it makes perfect sense when you look at it from a business point of view of why they're not going to carry Pokemon. I know, obviously, all the, whining, crying children out there want to come up with these conspiracy theories like, oh, it's just more ways to manipulate the market, more ways for the scalpers and the scammers. It's just like, no, you guys are making it ridiculous, fighting over each other for it. And so the stores are going to say, okay, if you can't be nice and play nice together, we got to take nice things away from you. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's I don't know. We're in a point in the market where it's just become such a prevalent issue with people that are in the space, not because they love Pokemon, but because they're just wanting to make money. And at the end of the day, we can sit here and say like, oh, Pokemon can't keep up with demand because the demand for Pokemon is so high. It's like, no, it's not specifically just Pokemon where the demand is high. It's as there is always an opportunity to make money with Pokemon, people are going to want to make money with it regardless as if they care about the hobby or not. I mean, we were literally just talking about this before the stream. Like, there are people that are like going and just literally snap decision, just without a thought in their mind, buying product and then asking questions later on how they should offload it because they're just so frantic to get the product without even knowing what they're doing.
And unfortunately, as long as it keeps working, they're going to keep doing it. Right? It's just like, you know, everyone's just, anytime anyone asks me these days, like, hey, should I buy this? Be like, well, the answer has been yes for the past 3 months about anything you ask me. It doesn't matter what you ask. Should you have bought it with name Pokemon on it? Yeah, just buy it. Just buy it. It'll be worth more tomorrow. And there'll come a time when that isn't true anymore. But unfortunately, in this day and age, it is true for now. And it's probably going to continue to be true for months to come. And so, yeah, I mean, people are just, they know that. And they're saying, oh, it says Pokemon on it. Better throw it in the cart.
Yeah. And now we've got, obviously, Costco coming out saying that for Blooming Waters, who knows it's going to be for other products, but they're no longer going to start selling it in store. It's going to be online only just because, I mean, you had it at first where it was something where it was just like hands off deck. Like you can just buy as much as you want. People were literally fighting. And then it eventually became something where they were going to try and limit it. And even then people were still fighting over the fact that it was limited because they just didn't have enough. Because like we've shown in videos or like we've shown with pictures, like one pallet's not enough when you've got like 100 people waiting outside, getting up at like 6 a.m. just to get product. So it's something where they're like, all right, forget, we're just going to sell it online because there's just no point at this point. And a lot of people, of course, are already crying about it because, you know, now it's the scalpers coming out to use their bots. And now it's going to be even harder than ever for people to get access to the product because bots are just going to buy it all up.
It's a bad look for your store. It's like, guys, the majority of people who shop at Costco, they're there to shop for food for their family or household items for their families. They don't want to see a bunch of grown children running around fighting each other over a box of Pokemon cards. Same thing with Walmart. Also, their profits do not depend on Pokemon. It is a very small little minuscule part of what they sell in their stores. And so if they can relieve a bunch of pressure off of, you know, all the craziness, you know, stress and, you know, possible like threats at their employees and all that, they're going to do so. It just doesn't make sense. And so it was probably overdue, long overdue. And I think it's a smart move for the stores. But hey, I'm just a evil investor guy. So that's my take.
Yeah, that's true. Alex is just doing what he does best, just pissing people. No, I'm just kidding. Well, actually, is it a joke though? No.
Scalponomics, baby.
Scalponomics. Have people called you that? I wouldn't be surprised.
Of course.
Oh man. Yeah, no. It's definitely interesting to see the general like kind of transition over that we're seeing some stores have to moving things online. But ultimately, as much as people hate it because they're like, oh, well, now scalpers are going to have an easier time getting the product because they can just use bots. It's one that from a legalistic perspective, these stores are like, I'd much rather have people be upset because of scalping than have potential lawsuits because people are afraid of getting hurt when they go into a Costco because they get stampeded on or something, right? Because I mean,
honestly, I don't. Maybe I'm very technology illiterate, so like I'm speaking, you know, from no way of knowing. But like, how is it not possible to set a limit on how many items can be delivered to a certain address? Now, I know people can have different addresses, but like that would take away being able to use all kind of different accounts and credit cards and this and that. Like, can't they set up a system where, oh, if more than one or box or whatever goes to this address, we cancel your order? Is that hard?
Yeah, I don't know.
Where you literally could not. Then maybe if they had family members, hey mom, hey grandma, hey sister, you know, order me some. Okay, then I guess you can kind of cheat the system a little bit. But I feel like that would help a lot. Is just say, hey, we're only limiting one box per address.
Yeah, it's hard to say, honestly. I have absolutely no idea because I know that at one point that's what Pokemon was doing with some of the promo cards that they offered.
Yeah, but Satori's saying it's easy to get PO boxes. Yeah, but here's the thing: PO boxes cost money. If you could only get one box, not one case, one box per address, it would basically, after shipping fees, the one PO box cost, wouldn't it start to eat up all the profit anyway?
I guess
it's just like, I think we could probably get to a point where we stop the scalping and stop the bots, but it's not working now because they just have all these workarounds. I mean, I feel like there's a way for you know, some kind of technology to be there to read these things. I don't know. Again, there would have to be a way, but who knows?
I think the problem is like depends how professional these scalpers are, right? Because PO boxes for like a one-off thing sounds like it's a waste of time. But if you've got someone that's doing it professionally, and they're not just doing it for Pokemon, but they're doing it for other things where it's, you know, one address limit, then it could make more sense for them to do it, because you saw that obviously with Pokemon Center promos where they've done that before. So this isn't the first time you're seeing a company come in and limit items to one household. So one box per membership, that would be a good one.
And that's so easy. All you do is put a code on there where once more than one box gets scanned on that membership card, cuts it out. Like, there are things they can put in place. They just don't want to, because again, guys, here's what you think about. Why are they going to go through all this effort, pay for these things to be developed and everything? Because Pokemon is just one small fraction of their business. Like, people, again, it's the whole idea of, well, everyone invests in Pokemon now. Nobody invests in Pokemon. Go out in general public, right? In the real world, go touch grass in the real world. Ask your average person if they invest in freaking Pokemon cards. No one does it. And so this idea that you think companies are going to redo their entire online strategy, their memberships, everything to try to, you know, circumvent this one item on this one IP, it's so ridiculous. But the Pokemon people, they think like this is all that matters in the world. Who can buy what Pokemon cards? It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal, guys.
Yeah. Someone did bring up another point as well, that people are doing it for Magic secret layer drops. Because that's another one. I mean, I remember when they did a secret layer drop for Marvel, it was huge. And it was like, if you weren't there, good luck. Like, there was like a queue process. People were waiting in for several hours just to have the opportunity to buy their secret layer drop for Marvel product. So, which I guess that might be a good segue to speak of what's going to come next with Magic. And speaking of demand, Final Fantasy, man. Holy crap. I assume you've been paying attention to what's going on with Final Fantasy?
Well, I put my pre-orders in the program. And so I was hoping if I order like 10 cases worth, you might be able to ship me like 2 packs and maybe like 1 open pack with like the hits taken out.
Okay. I can.
And I figured that was like a realistic allocation I should expect. Is that correct?
I can make that happen. That seems feasible.
Okay. And then maybe like a commander deck like that's already been sifted through, like send me all the cards like under 20 cents.
Now you're pushing it. Now you're pushing it a little bit out.
Under 15 cents?
Think 10.
Okay. So I have a pretty realistic idea of how much I'm going to get.
Yeah, you're starting to be more realistic on where things are. So,
well, you know, I'm trying to bring realism back to the hobby.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, dude, man. That's that. And honestly, like just as a collector, right? I know Alex is a collector too. No, dude, I did look at those products and I immediately kind of fell in love. I'm like, man, I kind of want one of each of those Final Fantasy products from Magic. They're legit. I mean, I don't know if you're like me. I grew up playing all the Final Fantasy games, right? Final Fantasy 1 for NES. I played 2 and 3 for Super Nintendo. Played 7, 8, 9, 10 for PS and PS2. Like I love Final Fantasy. So yeah, man, it looks beautiful. It's a real deal.
Yeah, it is by far the most anticipated set that we have ever seen in the history of Magic. And what's crazy about that is LOTR, we thought was going to be the case. And nope, just kidding. It's actually going to be Final Fantasy now, where you've got some sales. It looks like it's come down a little bit since then, but you had sales like $700 a collector. $700 a collector. Like LTR out the gate was selling for like $450, $500, and people thought that was crazy. And now I understand, like, yeah. MSRP.
Hey, why doesn't anyone talk about that side of it? Why is it always the scalpers? Why don't we start thinking about how are you going to compete against people who are willing to pay $700 for a new box? Like, stop thinking about the scalpers who find ways to like buy and sell. How are you going to compete with customers who have the money and are willing to spend $700 a box? That scares me.
Yeah, it's I talked about it on last stream, man. Don't underestimate Magic. Like, Magic is it's one of the most successful franchises when it comes to the trading card game for a reason. There is so much money in Magic, and Final Fantasy is proving that. I mean, it's not something I feel like that's talked about a lot, primarily because we are a Pokemon channel, but like Magic is running into both similar and different issues, within the space. For the longest time, Magic was in a position where people were upset with the demand not being able to keep up with supply, and WotC decided to print everything on the ground. And then people started to complain about the fact that there was too much product, and now they're pulling back on the printers. And now all of a sudden you're starting to see the effects of that, where collector boxes are literally now coming out at just.
Hold on, wait. We gotta stop. We got to talk about that point you just made.
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling me that people weren't collecting as much Magic because they were printing too much? wait. And then when they brought back scarcity, it started to sell more.
People were definitely not happy about that. That's for sure.
Wow. So like the game piece army was wrong. People don't want cheap collectibles that are easily attainable, that have no value. Really?
It's a crazy take, man.
Oh my gosh. Changes everything I knew about hobbies.
I mean, literally, it was funny because it was something Rudy talked about when he was going through Aether Drift, and he was talking about Aether Drift, which a lot of people, Aether Drift, I would say right now is probably the most, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but like it's the most polarizing set that's out, where some people love it, some people hate it. And he was even talking about that, like, look, the numbers I got for the collectors of Aether are some of the lowest I've gotten, comparable to what we used to get for product. I'm talking like a huge dial back in general printing for collectors. And what's crazy to think about is, like, as far as I'm aware of, since I've been a part of the new block for Magic, there hasn't been any sort of like second wave for collectors of any product. I mean, Bloomburrow was a set that performed extremely well. And like, you've had Bloomburrow play, you've had Bloomburrow kits, you've had Bloomburrow commanders, all get reprinted. Collectors, not even touched whatsoever. And so right now they're really trying to push hard on making collectors, it seems, more than ever a collectible piece that is not going to get printed nearly as much. And from that, you're seeing value of collectors pre-sell for much higher than what they have before, and hold their value much better than they have before as well, knowing that previously you had multiple waves that would lower the price to below what would be wholesale.
It's brilliant. You have somebody in charge again that understands collectibles. That's the way it is. People, they hate to hear it. People want things to be rare and scarce. They do not want overprinted garbage. And it's the best of both worlds, right? Magic makes products for the players so everyone can enjoy them, all the commander decks, whatever else. Then they also have a product like collector boxes that don't get reprinted, that are able to hold and maintain and then rise in value, and they're not overprinted, and they're an actual collector's piece. And I think it's great. I think it's great to have a product for collectors and players in the same game.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you look at Magic, and don't get me wrong, there's always a lot of criticism to be thrown their way when it comes to some of the decisions they make. But I definitely think it is them going in the right direction, especially too, because you're also seeing them do a lot less Amazon drops, which Amazon drops, for those of you guys that obviously aren't aware, it was something where Magic was like, hey, we're just going to go partner with Amazon. They're going to come in, flood the market with this product, and it's going to tank the pricing aggressively. And then people are going to complain because a lot of these items are no longer of any value. And it makes it more difficult because, it obviously has its benefits to being a lot more of a, affordable game to play with Pokemon. But when it comes to Magic, one of the big things that a lot of people like to hang their hat up on is, hey, if I can go put a bunch of money in this deck, I don't have the fear of that, specific deck that I'm building to just tank 80% the next day because it's no longer in rotation as a part of the standard format, right? Because ultimately you've got older formats like Pioneer or like Legacy or like Commander, more specifically, obviously Commander going back the farthest, where you can just go play whatever card and it's going to allow it to still hold its value. Whereas, with Pokemon, we saw what happened with, what was the one? Capture Energies. And there was one other one that was really expensive, but you had some Pokemon cards that were going for like $4 or $5, part of the Sword and Shield block, that the minute they went out, just 10-cent card just dropped 95+%. So people like to make sure that their things that they're buying, they're spending money on, will at least retain its value, since it is such a popular game to play.
No, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you.
Yeah, the FF Amazon drop was a free up for like 20 minutes. Yeah, it's Yeah, I think we're at least heading in the right direction with Magic. It'll be interesting to see what obviously Pokemon does, because you kind of have to ask yourself, like, watching how both the companies operate, and especially, to be fair, they have different demographics. Just watching how they each handle things and trying to play the balancing game of like, all right, what's too much, what's not enough, because like we're at a point where if you look at 2022, 2023, the last reprint we had at that point was in October, right? We had our Crown Zenith and then another wave of 151. And that was about a year and 5 months ago. And then if you compare it to 2021, where we had reprints, obviously, at the back half of the year in like November, December time. And then we had our first reprints thereafter, which was starting in around August. It's been about a year and 8 to 9 month period that you kind of saw where reprints were happening. So technically speaking, if we're just going off of history, like Pokemon right now still has about 4 months left of possible no reprints, if we're just going to talk about comparing it to what happened in the last reprint cycle, where it's not that out of the norm that we're not seeing product right now available. It's just a matter of demand being so much higher than it was before. And so it feels like a lot tighter of a squeeze, because before it was like, all right, well, Sword and Shield, I want more Sword and Shield, I want more Sword and Shield, I want more Sword and Shield. But, Scarlet and Violet, who cares about Scarlet and Violet base? Who cares about Paldea? Whereas with this, set, all of the newest sets that are coming out, everyone wants anything that they can get their hands on, right? And I
dude,
mean, to be fair,
they literally can't do it now.
Yeah, they can't print do enough. It. Yeah, it's wild to see kind of the landscape in which things are going to happen, and who knows how Pokemon will approach it, because it could be one of these situations where Pokemon's like, next 4 or 5 months we'll reprint it, and then we'll just kind of let scarcity do its thing again. Or it could be one of these things where they come out and they reprint just enough to kind of ease the demand for a little bit, but then be like, maybe it's a better thing if we have prices more consistently at a higher price point, so that there's actual margin to be made consistently for stores.
All right, I'm gonna throw something at you. This is something I've been thinking about right now in the current market. Okay, give me your take. Current market, every single Scarlet Violet booster box and regular ETB, not PCs. So every set, a booster box or an ETB especially set. Do you think you'd be better off, right, in a year from now, buying every single one or buying none of them?
For Scarlet and Violet, just every product?
Go out and pay market price for every Scarlet Violet booster box and ETB, one of every set, or buy none of them. What do you think you'd be better off in a year or worse off in a year?
Everything Scarlet and Violet.
One of every box.
I think you'd be better off.
I do too. And this is why I've been trying to tell people, everyone is so worried all the time about restocks and reprints and price drops and market corrections. And I'm like, I truly think when you take in Base and Obsidian, Paldea, Paradox, Temporal, a lot of those sets are likely not going to get reprinted. 151 now. I think you'd be better off just buying everything right now and holding than you would trying to like wait on some things, time this, not going to buy this, I'll buy this. Like, I truly think you're probably better right now. Just like, screw it, I'm going to buy it all. Pokemon can't reprint all of it, and they can't reprint enough of all of it to make a huge difference. Eventually, they're going to have to move on from some sets, trying to pick and choose which sets are going to get it, which sets aren't. It seems hard right now. Just buy them all.
Yeah, I mean,
if you want to wait on like some, like you can definitely tweak it a little bit. Alex, Surging Sparks, I get that, but like, dude, Temporal back, dude, I think you're better off buying Temporal back than not buying it at this point.
Well,
I guarantee all those boxes, for the most part, will make you more in a year than not buying them, and you'll be able to pick them up in a year cheaper. No way.
Well, in my mind, there's gonna obviously be some sets. I mean, I could be wrong, right? But more than likely, there's going to be sets that are not going to get the reprint in Scarlet and Violet. We have yet to know which ones those are. And so in my mind, you're kind of making the chance or the risk that, hey, a year from now, hypothetically speaking, if let's say a bunch of items got reprinted, those ones that didn't get reprinted are going to not only continue to go up because they didn't get printed, and so it's going to help alleviate the ones that you purchase at a higher price point that end up getting printed, but also that the drop itself, when it does happen, it's not going to be one that's going to last long enough to where you're going to really feel that much pain. Because I know everyone likes to look at chilling and say like, and don't get me wrong, you had a lot of time to buy chilling. You did. You had a lot of time to buy chilling, but it only took about a year before it went back above MSRP, right? And it was selling for right around MSRP before it got printed into the ground. So a year's time can make a huge difference. I mean, Lost Origin, right? Lost Origin was an item that I went so hard in the paint on. It took about a year before it went to 250, a booster. Like, and that was its all-time high at that point. So not saying that it's guaranteed, right? And not saying that, demand couldn't come down and that could change things, but I guess don't underestimate what a year's time in this hobby can really do.
Dude, it just happened with Paldea Evolved. Like, people, you know how it is. Every time we do a stream, what are you buying right now? What should I buy? And it's just like, I'm buying Paldea Evolved. And they're like, but Alex, it's already $175, $180. Like, I bought 10 more cases of it and guess what? I'm one of the people that was buying in the 80s and 90s. And I was still buying because I still think it was undervalued. Look at it now. Now it's 240. 175 a box doesn't look too bad now, does it? And like, I think people have to get their minds, kind of wrapped around the new price points. Like, guys, after sets get that 1.5, 2 years old, the reprint possibility is so much less. It's still possible, but it's so much less. And if you see a good set, you see doing good in the future, it's not always a bad idea to raise your cost basis and buy in more product. Like that. So that's what I did. It's worked out. I continue to do that. Other people I know do the same thing with Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon, etc. I wouldn't be afraid of thinking that you missed out just because you can't buy a box at $100 anymore.
Dude, Paldea making its next leg up right now it's crazy to see.
Can't say we didn't warn them.
Yeah, I mean,
I've been warning people since that set came out.
Yeah, what do you think? Where's your kind of stance? I mean, obviously, we both think it's a better set, but just from a general performance perspective, what do we think's next in the cards for Obsidian?
Dude, Obsidian is something that I didn't see coming, that I didn't believe in, and Obsidian's a perfect example of why I buy every set, even when I don't believe in them, because you never know how this hobby's going to go. So I have no clue. That's why I bought Twilight Masquerade. Same thing. Everyone hated it. I wasn't too, excited about it, but I still bought some and put it away because I buy every set. Because again, I'm not smart enough to be a set picker. And this is one of those scenarios where it's like, well, I'm glad I take that route.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I didn't think it'd be this high. So I don't know what to say is coming.
I mean, you kind of knew my stance on Obsidian and Darkness and all these Charizard sets, dude. I've always been very adamant about how much I hate them, but also at the same time, I don't know, man. Charizards are one of those things that's really hard to bet against. It just, you always look at the set and you're like, really? It's performing well? But it's like,
I mean, this is the thing about like set picking, right? Like people, they think they try to get too smart for this hobby. It's like, here, if I was going to be a set picker, I would have had Paldea still, so I would have did good. I would have had Paradox. I would have had Temporal. And I would have had Surging. But I would have missed out on Stellar Crown going to 190. I would have missed out on Twilight Masquerade being 230 a box. I'd have missed out on all these other moves. And it's like, yeah, I would have done good, better on some, worse on others. But it's probably about even. Like, I think I'm doing about even if I would just buy every set like I do, or if I would try to cherry pick sets. I think it almost always evens out, which is like, it's like I always say, it's like, why try to complicate things? Stop trying to get too cute, too smart for it. Just buy every freaking set and let time do its thing. It's that easy.
Do you think, now here's an interesting question, right? I've got two questions here for you, and this will be a fun one. This will be a fun one to ask, I feel like. One, with the recent rise of Scarlet and Violet base, they're pretty much at the same price. Long term, would you prefer to hold Scarlet and Violet base compared to Obsidian? And then my follow-up question I have for you is, have you been paying attention to some of the cards that have been spiking in Scarlet and Violet base, including the Drowsy, and seeing that one just absolutely shoot up like crazy in price? More or less, I assume this kind of plays a role as to the price increase of the set. Maybe not. I don't know how much you kind of put weight on that, but just kind of curious on your opinion for those two questions.
Yeah, and shout out to God, I forget his name, but we did pull the Drowsy last night on the breaks, which is pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, I'm already wrong right now. I'm already wrong, and I'll probably continue to be wrong, but I still would rather have Scarlet Violet base than Obsidian. I know the Ninetales is beautiful. I understand the Cleffa, the Gloom, some of the other cards. I just like Scarlet Violet base better. I like the Gardevoir. I like the Miriam. I like the Drowsy, Slowpoke, Ralts line. I mean, I like the Miraidon, Coraidon. Those are the faces of the actual video games. I think it's nice to have, like, I don't know. It's just, to me, I still like SV base as a whole. I think it's probably the strongest base set we've had, at least in modern times. I don't think XY, Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield even hold a candle to this set. And I still like it more than Obsidian. Does it mean it's going to perform better? No. But if I had to choose one, I'd still choose it.
I mean, I know it's a gamble, but like, at what point do you start saying to yourself that you start to play the game of like just picking up a couple of cards from, like, a couple of each card from every set as well, going even further with it, because you say to yourself, if one of them hits, I can just, I mean, literally, it went from a $6 card to a $60 card.
You know what's funny about this conversation? I got asked this about it on one of my lives, or maybe I didn't even make a video about it. Someone asked about, Alex, wouldn't it be just as good to buy the top hit in every set? Like, look at how they've performed. And I said, here's your problem. The top hit is always changing. You can't pick a top hit. What's the top hit? Oh, it's Drowsy today, but it was Gardevoir yesterday, but it was Miriam the day before. And it's like that in every set. Like, oh, Paradox Rift. Well, it was the Roaring Moon. No, it's the Groudon. Well, it's the, Iron Valiant used to be number 2. Now it's number like 6. And it's like, if you're trying to play that game, it's impossible to try to pick a card. But your idea of trying to dig deep in the sets and try to find cards that you think are just like undervalued, popular species, great artwork, whatever it may be, or maybe you're looking at the grading, the pop reports, and you're just like, oh, these cards are really hard to grade. Maybe they're going to pop off, which the illustrations are now. I think you can do extremely well doing that. It's just, it's very hard to do that because, you're going to take a lot of bets and you're going to be wrong. And you're going to need those bets that you take to really pay off exponentially to make it all worth it. And again, just like investing, you got to have a good time horizon. You can't be buying cards thinking, oh man, it's going to happen in 1-2 months. And then, 3 months later, you're wrong. And you're like, man, I knew I was wrong. I'm dumping them. And then it's like, oh, well then 6-9 months later, you were right. So it's like, yeah, you can definitely be successful doing that. I think this market's proving that. You just have to have the right time horizon.
Yeah, it's definitely, like you were kind of saying, Gardevoir yesterday, Drowsy today. So I feel like if you're trying to pick the game of like just only invest, if you were to do this strategy, right? Just only investing in the most valuable card in the set, it's not the worst by any chance, but to have any sort of real like return, you almost have to either get lucky enough or go wide enough to where one of the cards that you happen to pick up in the set just so happens to 10, 20, 30x. Because all of a sudden there's a massive appreciation for that card. And to be fair, right? It doesn't happen that often, right? Like,
this market's distorting it.
Yeah, it happens. Don't get me wrong. And it's something that, we're fond of because we've seen other cards do things like this before, but it's not like every single month we're just playing this game of which one's next, right?
This market's very, very strange, guys. Like, anyone newer, don't think this is normal. Like, these drowsy moves, all these Persian moves, all these crazy moves you see, this was like once in a blue moon type stuff. Now it's like every day or every week there's a new one. So like, don't get used to this market. Don't get used to picking cards and thinking they're going to go to the moon overnight. It doesn't happen like that. It's just, this is very strange times.
Yeah. I feel like we still have so much to talk about.
PSA. Want to talk PSA?
I was going to talk about that, but one thing I wanted to mention before we start talking about that, for those of you guys that don't know, I actually, I got an interesting email that was announced by WPN. I feel like this is worth mentioning. So I got an email that WPN is going to be partnering with TCGplayer. And how it's going to basically work is retailers are going to have the option to participate in a pilot where they're going to be able to have a WPN badge displayed on their account. It's going to allow them to gain greater marketplace visibility and be recognized as a trusted retail Wizards of the Coast buyer, instilling buyer confidence, signaling to customers they're purchasing from a Wizard verified store. TCGplayer will also be able to filter these search results to include Magic the Gathering product only sold by WPN retailers. This program is intended to foster an omni-channel experience that boosts sales, expands the retailer customer base, enhances purchase conversions, and improves over retail profitability. Now, I know obviously right now we're talking specifically for Magic. Who's to say PokePlay might not end up doing that next? I mean, it's always something that's on the table, but it is something that's kind of interesting to see. And I felt like was worth mentioning because
just give you guys even more advantages over all of us common folk.
I mean, people get upset about the fact that stores can place pre-orders and how they get a leg up on the market. So if you now have another advantage for certain stores, and it's going to be starting with Magic, who knows what TCG's opt into it next, where if you're not a storefront, then you're also missing out on this potential opportunity for a, marketplace experience where it's going to funnel a lot of demand. It'll be interesting to see how that's kind of going to affect things.
I still don't even understand how does TCGplayer work? I thought people only bought stuff physically in stores. So where do all these sales even come from? It's like, if they stop selling products in store at all these retailers like Costco, Walmart, Target, GameStop, where's everyone going to get their products? I mean, I know e-commerce is the biggest marketplaces in the world right now, but I mean, no one apparently buys Pokemon online is what I'm told. The only place you can get it's in store, bro.
Here's my personal perspective from it, especially as someone who's in the Magic scene. What I will do is if I'm building, let's say I'm building a commander deck, I will look at the local stores in my area because, they have their online catalogs where you can go pick up same day. And if I can go purchase the cards and have them be picked up same day, I will go down the list of my deck. I will buy all those cards. And then any of the cards that I can't buy from the shop same day, then get put into a TCGplayer cart. So at least from my own personal experience, it's basically, hey, do I have this card in my local area to pick up right now? I don't. All right, well, I guess my only real option then is TCGplayer. So TCGplayer, I feel like for a lot of people that are very instant gratification, that want their product right here, right now, they're using TCGplayer for a lot of people as their backup option to be able to just still get the card, even if they're going to have to wait a little bit longer.
I mean, here's the thing, dude. I don't get to take advantage of it. I don't get to take advantage of pre-orders. I'm not going to see any benefit from it, but it's good, man. I mean, stores now than ever, dude. I mean, local stores, they need all the help they can get. And this is another way to help them out. I mean, I'm not against it.
Yeah, it's a weird spot to be in, right? Because you've got stores that are obviously, I would argue this. The stores that are hurting the most are probably the newest stores. Because I feel like if you're a veteran store that's been around for a while, you're probably been around for a while because you understand how to run a successful business, right? You haven't failed yet. And then on top of that, you probably as well are sitting on a good supply of backstock inventory and or are, able to manage this general market cycle in a way that is allowing you to keep this consistent supply and or replenish the supply because you understand how to keep coming in and getting more product. The shops that are getting hurt the most are the ones that, of course, either one, just have extremely low allocations, whether it be because they didn't order a ton to begin with and they were barely hanging on by a thread, or new stores that obviously are just now trying to build up spend but can't because there's nothing available. And so it's starting to be a huge detriment to them being able to survive, and they're basically having to go secondary market just to get access to products. So
let me be bad guy for a minute too, because I have to. I'm the most hated person in Pokemon for a reason, Eli. You got to let me cook a little.
Is that an official badge?
All right, guys, I'm gonna be hated again. It's no one's responsibility to make your business succeed. It's not Pokemon's. It's not the distributors. If you're in a market climate where you're relying solely on the distributor model to give you enough boxes you can make immediate profit to keep your business running, and you didn't have any stress test built into your business that you had other sources of revenue that could make up for times like this. I mean, look, you can blame a little bit on the market conditions and Pokemon and not printing enough, distributors not distributing correctly, all that, but you have to point some of the blame at yourself. It's not Pokemon, it's any business in the world. There is somebody that has failed at every single business, and they've always had an excuse on why they failed. But at the same time, there's 100 other people who are all successful in that same business, in that same industry, that are successful. And so at some point you have to point the finger at yourself and saying, well, maybe there's something that I was doing wrong that I could have done differently to make it through these times, because it's not always someone else's fault. That's my perspective.
I mean, it's also one of those things too, where we're in a hobby or a market right now where it should be, as long as you obviously have the product and you were able to be smart with getting back stock, you should be making consistently better margins, right? Because there's a lot of stores that I know in my local area that are literally selling significantly above TCGplayer pricing. And, I don't know if it's back stock or if they're buying secondary market, which is why they have to, charge that much.
Which a lot of stores are right now.
Which a lot of stores are, so I'm not going to judge them. But people are willing to pay those prices. And it's like having that consistency where you, like before, we're like, hey, I'm getting things for cheaper, but my margins are worse because there's just less demand, versus I'm paying more, but the demand is higher. And so people are willing to pay more and I'm able to make more margin. It sucks, but for the consumer, but also as like the business owner, you kind of prefer to have that consistency of demand where you're going to make sales, because you'd much rather be able to make sales than not be able to make sales, right? Like,
right.
And obviously if you're also someone that was able to build up a back stock, then it's even easier, right? Because at this point, it's like you're just kind of watching booster box prices and other products just continue. I mean, from what? I mean, what was Paldea going for back in like October? Probably like what, 130, 140 maybe? Like,
yeah. And
it's at 240 right now. Like, that's just watching it, right?
Well, here's the other thing, now I'm going to go back and like defend the small guys, right? I just kind of tore them down. Now I got to defend them. So it's not right for people to like freak out and all these consumers get angry at these smaller stores that are charging more. And then these bigger stores, right? Like people who have large allocations like you or someone else, right? They'll post all this social media stuff for their brand. Like, I sold my boxes at MSRP on the day of release. I blew them out to all my customers because I care about my customers. It's like, bro, you got freaking 2,000 boxes. You sold a few hundred of them at MSRP, and then you rose with the market. These other guys got freaking 20, 30 boxes for their entire store. If they don't make any money on those, they're not going to stay in business. And so it's like, I think there's a lot of that going on right now. This like, feeling holier than thou from all the bigger guys who can afford to like take some profit hits on some of their products, and then they'll make a lot because they get so much more and they have such bigger relationships with distributors. So I think there's a little bit of each going on. There's some of the smaller people that are kind of, pointing too much blame. And there's other people like the customer side saying like everyone's evil because they're making a profit, when it's just like, guys, not everyone's playing with the same rules, right? Like you get 2,000 boxes, they might get 20. And so it's like, I think everyone just has to understand that no one knows everyone's situations and everyone's trying to do the best they can with what they have. And not everyone's evil for making a profit in the hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're in a little bit of a different situation, I don't know. I don't want to get like too religious on people here, but like, it reminds me of like an old parable, like they talk about in the Bible, of the widow's offering. And like the general premise is basically like, you've got one individual that's like tithing everything they own, which is like, I think it was like 2 copper, like coins at the time. And then you had the Pharisees, which were like offering up significantly more, but it was like nothing comparably to what their actual like worth was. And it was something that, people look at and they're like, oh, well, that individual like is donating more, but also how much more did it mean to that one person to give up everything they have? It means so much more. And so like, for me, I kind of think of it in that regard, where you've got stores that are kind of white knighting and are like, look at me, like I'm offering such a good deal. Like I'm the best, but also at the same time, they can afford to do that for some of their supply and then jack up the price on other ones, but then it'll make them visually look good from like a marketing PR perspective, where you've got other stores that aren't in the position to do that because they got 1/10 of the amount of supply. And all of a sudden, like, we're supposed to like name them the ass because they just aren't in that exact same position. Like,
well, and also I know some of the bigger stores, and I know what they do. Guys, you want to hear what they do? I'm not going to name names, obviously. I'll tell you exactly what they're doing to try to make themselves look good. Okay. They're selling a certain amount of boxes at MSRP or at low prices on their shelves, so you think they're great people. And then what they're doing is they're selling the rest in private deals, or they're breaking everything down, selling the packs to streamers in private deals, and they're getting full market price for them. So guess what? They're still making all their freaking money on that stuff. Then they're taking a little small amount and putting it on their sites and their shelves and saying, look at me, I'm selling MSRP, baby. And it's like, okay, this is not right.
Yeah, it's virtue signaling at its finest. And like, I won't disclose the name of the individual, but I've had conversations with individuals that are basically like, Eli, like I, for the longest time during like we'll say surging, like I've been getting crushed because I just can't make sales because there's been no margin and my business has been failing. And I've always been known as the guy that's like trying to make, things as cheap as possible for people. And it's been causing my business to fail because I'm literally making no money and I'm barely surviving. And it's one of these things now, like where I'm afraid to actually make money off of surging in these newer sets because literally how it will make me look. And I'm afraid that I'm going to get called out by people or blah, blah. And basically I had to like tell them like, stop. Like, this is not how the mentality should be. Like you shouldn't have to feel guilty. And for those people that do get upset with you, like, who cares? Like those people are obviously out of touch. They're not loyal to you. They're basically just trying to get the best price. They're going to complain regardless of whether it's you or someone else. And you can't be kind of affected by that. You have to understand that, like, as a business owner, you have
one of the hardest things to
business.
Yeah, one of the hardest things to find out is not everyone's your customer.
Yeah.
You want everyone that comes in your shop or send you an email, comes to your site to be your customer. Well, you have to realize not everybody's your customer.
Yeah.
And the sooner you realize that, the easier it gets to say no to people or just let it go or say, okay, that's no big deal. If that's how you feel, this is how I feel. We'll go our separate ways. And that's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's the thing is it's like, it's tough because I can understand the fear that some people may have because they've built a brand or identity around that and it's causing them to be fearful of changing that. But also at the same time, if your literal business is failing because that is kind of where you are at this point, it's like you have to consider pivoting and say, hey, it might, tarnish my brand or it might look bad at first, but ultimately it's a pivot that kind of needs to be made at some point, or just a realignment or readjustment on how you kind of handle your business. Because otherwise you're not going to be succeeding for much longer when all this dies down.
I mean, I know, like I ruffle a lot of feathers and like some of the ways I do business does too. It's just like, I have people reach out on eBay all the time. When I was listing a lot of stuff on eBay. And I used to tell people things and they would like come back and like cuss me out over it, like through eBay message. And like, because I'd have a PSA 10 listed. And what I would do is I just copy paste the PSA scans to the listing front and back. Right. Well, they would want like more pictures. Right. And I would just message them back, say, I don't think I'm the person to purchase from. I think you should purchase from someone else. That's all I would say. And they get all mad at me. I'm not trying to sell people that are that particular. Same thing with my promo listings. I'll list like 50 promos and I'll just post one stock image of the promo, right? And I sell them that way. Well, people will ask, they want all kind of pictures. I'm just like, look, I'm not the store for you. You should probably look for someone else. And they get all mad about it. I'm just like, look, I am not spending my time taking all kind of pictures, messaging people back and forth to sell these cards. If you like my price and you want a near mint copy, it might be a PSA 8 worthy, it might be PSA 10 worthy. It's a near mint copy. I'll send you that. That's the transaction. And I'm okay with that. I am going to lose customers because I don't cater to everyone, but that's okay. And that's what people have to understand is like your price, what you sell, how you sell it, the way you handle things is not going to cater to everyone, but you have to do what makes most sense for your business, for your time investment. And I think that's the hardest thing for newer stores to understand is that like not everything is always worth it as a business owner.
Yeah. And then obviously, because it has to be said, because people are always going to take us out of context, it goes the other way too. The minute you start to get greedy, then all of a sudden people are going to remember that. So you got to make sure you find that right balance as a business owner. But we've been going for already 50 minutes. So let's briefly talk about PSA and then we'll start going into questions. I already see one that someone did a super chat for, so we'll address that here in a second. But yeah, let's talk about PSA, man. I mean, for those of you guys that don't know, PSA most recently, I think a week or almost 2 weeks now at this point, they kind of announced that they were going to be changing their grading standard on what is going to be classified as a 10 now. So it is now 45-55, if I'm correct, right? Is what the new standard was, where before it was, I think, don't quote me on this, it was 60-40 for the front.
Yeah, it was.
So, yeah. I think the biggest thing with this, actually, I'll let you go first.
Well, first off, I just think it's dirty raising your grading standards, like officially. Like, there's always been times in the past. I remember when I got in the hobby, the big thing was when they went to the 4 certs. When, like, think how long that ago. We're in the 10s now. But when I got in, the big thing was like when they went to the 4s. That was like seeing that they changed like the case and the label and everything was like nice and new and stuff. And those were seen as like better quality than like the 2 certs because, you know, the grading standards were supposedly higher. And then they did it again. I think around the 7s, people started to talk about it again, but it was always just kind of like community opinion. Now they've officially come out and said, no, we're actually raising the grading standards. And I just think it's a little dirty for every 10 that came before it now. So in my opinion, if they wanted to do something better, they probably should have went to more of like a pristine grade or something and done it in a way where like, okay, going forward, starting with like a certain set, like starting with Journey Together, we're going to start giving out pristine 10s, but we're not going to give them out for anything before that. Cause it would, you know, that wouldn't be the right way to, you know, approach that. Cause then anyone who got a 10 in those cards before that would be like less valuable now. So I think there would have been a better way to do that. Maybe starting it on a set and then going forward, there's now a pristine grade maybe. But then it would just like kind of devalue a PSA 10. It'd almost be like a 9.5. So like, I don't know the right way to do it, but man, it is definitely causing shockwaves. I know people are getting orders back that have been grading for years and they've always had like a 70, 80% 10 rate, whatever they grade at. And now they're getting cut to like 30, 40% on some of these orders. And we're not talking, they're sending in all illustration rares or hard grade cards. They're sending in cards that previously had a 60, 70% 10 rate. And their pre-grading is good. They've been doing it for a long time and they're getting crushed. And so it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt grading businesses. I don't know how, again, I'm more of an English guy, so I don't know how it's going to affect Japanese. Kind of like that quality is usually a lot better. But yeah, it's going to cause shockwaves in the industry. I don't know if it's going to push people away from grading as much because there's not as much profit to be made, which might cause a, you know, kind of shortage in the PSA 10 market, which might cause prices to even rise more. There's a lot of unknowns, man, but I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just reading over the chat in our wholesale program, and there's 2 people that I saw in specifics. One person that was in the program said they pretty consistently get 10s in most of their submissions they make, and their most recent one since the switch, because of course, you know, the timing of this all. And that's one thing I will say before I start going into it. I think the thing that upsets me the most is they did it without any notice. And they did it for a reason, because they knew that obviously if they did give people notice, then people would now start to say, well, maybe we don't want to send it in because it could affect our grades. And PSA obviously didn't want people to know that. And so that way they would just keep submissions flowing. And then those people that already sent it in were SOL. Anyway, we had some people that were talking about in the chat. One person, most recent submission that they got back like a week or 2 ago, 0 10s. Didn't get a single 10 where they usually pretty consistently get 10s. And we've got another person that said that they've done over 10,000 plus PSA submissions, you know, usually a 70% PSA 10 rate. And one of the more recent submissions that they got, it ranged anywhere between a 5 to 15% 10 rate now, which is an insane drop. Like going from 70% down to that, depending upon which one it was. I mean, I'm just like, that's terrible. Like that is literally terrible to hear that you've got more recent just submissions getting absolutely harder and harder at getting 10s. And what I think more frustrating than anything is we've gotten to a point in the hobby where, for those of you guys that aren't like super heavy into this, people now have to care about like the serialized number of like the PSA card, because they're like, oh, well, that one's part of like the 2000 series, because they didn't care about the grading standard as much as they do with 7000 and newer. It's like, I shouldn't have to literally consistently worry about if my card's truly a 10 because of the time in which I bought it. Like, it just makes it so much more difficult and so much more inconsistent as a collector, to where it just becomes extremely frustrating.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna have a hot take. Hot take. I think people are gonna be really surprised at the long-term growth of a lot of these illustration rares in Scarlet Violet era. I think people think it's all a big flash in the pan and it's all gonna crash. And I think there's gonna be a correction. But I also think in the long term, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, a lot of these illustration rares are going to really surprise people because a lot of their pop reports are very, very low. They're not quite on par with some of the vintage. Like, a lot of the vintage stuff is still in the low hundreds. A lot of these are in like the mid hundreds. And if you kind of like calculate out the gem rate right now on a lot of those, and you say, okay, if they get 10,000 graded, what's the gem rate? Well, now if the gem rate even drops further than what it already is, dude, there could be a lot of these top tier illustrations that people want with less than 1,000 copies in the future in PSA 10. That's crazy for a modern cards. Like, that's very scarce for the modern popularity. And so, yeah, man, I could see a lot of those holding a lot more value than people think. Like, of course, a lot of them are overinflated. We're going to see drops, but that'll be short-term drops. You know, we've seen multiple booms and busts in the alt arts. What are we going to see in 3, 4, 5 years? Is it going to look like some of the top hits in X, Y, and Sun and Moon? I mean, I think some of these illustrations could really surprise people for long-term holds.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see for sure.
It's something I've been keeping an eye on pretty closely, man.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely makes you more nervous for grading. That's for sure. I mean, especially as like a shop too, like, we pride ourselves in offering extremely competitive trade rates. Like, we have the best rates in the Valley for trades. And so because of that, we have a lot of people that will like go out of their way to like sell their collections to us. And it's been great because it allows us to have the opportunity to have cards that we can send in for grading. But it's like, oh, it'll hurt the bottom line a lot for a lot of businesses that kind of rely on this.
And developers, you know, he said, who's going to win all these IRs? Let's be honest. Yeah, I'm not talking about all of them. There's definitely random ones that are moving up that I don't think, I'm not saying they're all going to do well, but some of these top ones with the most popular characters on them, you got to be crazy if you don't think they're going to do well. I mean, we see it in every single era of, you know, the most popular cards, most popular Pokemon. They do hold up pretty well as graded 10s, especially if they're hard to grade. And so, yeah, I think you're kind of sleeping on them if you think these are not going to be a thing in the future.
I mean,
because here's what happens. There's usually a handful of cards from every era that continue to perform well over long periods of time. If you go back to XY, right, there's the Silver Dialga. There's some of the secret rares, like the full art Gengar from Phantom Force is doing very well. Obviously, like, you know, the Flash Fire Charizard. Like, we can go on and on, right? There's the Rayquaza from Ancient Origins. Then you go to Sun and Moon. There's like the Mewtwo GX. There's the Rainbow Charizard. There's obviously some of the tag teams. Like, there's cards that always perform well. And Sword and Shield looks like it's going to be some of the alt arts. And so what's that handful of cards going to be in Scarlet Violet era? I think that handful could include some of these illustrations.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I will say that I wish they did, right, is I understand that they made this shift to the 10, and who knows, right? Maybe this could be something where 10s are now all of a sudden going to be more valuable going in the future for new cards because the PSA pop report is going to be significantly lower. But I guess my thing is if you're going to go about it this way, I feel like you also have to raise the standard for 9s. You know, maybe that's a hot take, but like,
wow,
if you look at 9s at this point, it's become a point of emphasis where if you hit a 9, and I'm not saying the idea of grading is to make money, but like, if you hit a 9, you're losing money because you can go buy 9s for typically either at the same price or in some instances of cards slightly cheaper than raw. So it's like, if you're saying to yourself, hey, we want to raise the standards of a 10, but now there's just such a huge disparity of like a 9 compared to a 10, I feel like it's going to cause a huge market shift in how 9s versus 10s are going to be, you know, compared to. And it
so
also
are you almost saying you think there should actually almost be like a profit for hitting a 9?
Yes. I'm not saying that obviously that is something that's owed. Like, it's not like the idea of grading is to make money. Like, that's not it, right? Obviously that's why people do it, but I am saying that at least be consistent with it. If you're going to raise your grading standards, it shouldn't just be for the 10. It should also be for the 9. So, because now there's just a huge disparity between a 9 and a 10. Like, if you're literally saying to yourself, like, if I send in a card of 100 cards and only 10% of them get 10s and the rest of them get 9s, like that's just a huge disparity, right? You need to make it to where in PSA 9s or a 9.5, like I don't mind them doing 9.5s in the same way as BGS does it. But I just need to think there needs to be a little bit more scrutiny on 9s, because it feels like they're just literally giving anything 9s. Like it's like, there's something wrong with this card, we'll just give it a 10. Like it feels like 9s are really easy to hit.
Yeah.
All right. How are we feeling? You want to start going into questions now?
Yeah, for sure. I think we hit pretty much everything we wanted to.
All right. First and foremost, shout out to Rudy's Basement. Thank you so much for the $5. Going back to the LGS locally versus TCGplayer. I live in a basement and people scare me. I'm not lazy or instant gratification. I'm just a vampire. That's so funny. Hey, man.
Appreciate you, Rudy's Basement. Always good for some comic relief.
Appreciate the $5, baby. Yeah, man. I mean, so then vampires, do you think vampires just collect Pokemon? Do they not like actually play the game because they have no way to socialize? Or they just play with their vampire buddies in their basement?
I think they... I can't even answer that question.
Alex is like, we're getting
I'm not in the right mind state for it.
He's like, no sarcastic questions.
You got to ask me that when I'm like slap happy at like 2 a.m. in the morning. Then I can maybe come up with something.
All right. Next time I come over at 2 a.m., I'll make sure to keep that in mind.
All right, man. Let me know. Always welcome.
Always welcome. All right, let's start getting to some questions. As always, guys, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe. Really helps the channel. And then if you want to have your question answered, make sure you put in bold question, or not bold, sorry, in caps bold, followed up by the question that you want me to answer. Makes my life much easier.
Look at trading card 69. PSA stands for please submit again.
That's a good one.
That's perfect.
That's actually so terrible. Well, I mean, you obviously heard that they're trying to make slabs harder for people to crack, right? You've heard about that too?
Yeah, I haven't noticed that at all. I've cracked them.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a new thing that they're going to implement or if it's being implemented now, but I don't know.
I mean, you can't, it's plastic. Like, you can't stop someone from cutting plastic.
Yeah. All right, let's see where we are with some of the questions. I don't even know what, okay, I know what the second half of this means, but I don't know what the first half. Did you used to hit strong, mid, or weak? What does that even mean? If you had the chance for a child to either be a professional volleyball or take over your store, which would it be? What is it? What does he mean by did you used to hit strong, mid, or weak? Do you know what that means?
It's something about volleyball, I'm sure.
Strong, mid, or weak? I don't know if anyone has some follow up in the comments on what that.
I mean, if you're a volleyball player and that doesn't make sense to you, then obviously I have no clue what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's a volleyball reference. If it is, I would have. I guess if he's asking,
so obviously weak,
strong. I assume what he's asking is like how is my spike? I think is what he means. I think that's what I assume he's saying. But if I had the chance to either have volleyball or take over the store, 100%, I'd want volleyball over the store, 100%. And I like obviously, in the question is posed. The question is posed obviously as these are my two options. I'm not going to put my kids in a box. I'm not going to be like, look, here's your two options. This is what you have to do. You get no other life other than these two things. Owning the store, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, if I had to choose, I'd love my kid to be a pro volleyball player. But like for me, my kind of thought process of when I raise my kids is going to be, I want them to be the best at whatever they're passionate about, because passion is what really drives you to do what you're doing. And so for me, I just want to set my kids up in a position where they learn early, like what hard work really is, and they're not going to just have everything handed to them.
What if they're very passionate about being a scalper?
Dude, they're gonna be the best scalpers.
And it drives them to be the best scalper.
Dude, they're gonna be the best.
Like, what if they like create their own bots and they like find ways to get around every different firewall? Like, could you imagine? That was your kid.
Yeah, right. Oh man, that's so funny. Yeah, no, I'd prefer volleyball for sure, but I want my kids to just I want them to just be successful. Cause for me, like my kid, for some reason, like I want to be a pro tennis player. Like, go freaking play pro tennis. Like, I'll support you and I'll do whatever I can. But like, just understand that if this is what you want, I'm not going to make you half-ass it. Like, you're going to literally make this your life.
Yeah,
because
like anything. Like, I want to be an OnlyFans star, right? Like, you don't care.
Like, well, you already are, Alex. Come on now.
No, I'm talking about your kids that tells you that. And you're just like, yeah, kids, I support that. I support that.
You boxed me in a corner with that one, Alex. I don't got a response for you. So people are saying it's middle blocker right side, oppo is weak side. That's interesting. I've never heard that term be used. It's funny. I always played oppo, but I excelled much more as a left side. I always was much better playing on the outside. So middle, I'm too short for middle. I'm only 6'1". But to be fair, like I only played a little bit of club indoor. Most of what I did was sand. Sand is kind of where I played the most. I would play defender, and my specialty was always just making placements with the ball and always being good at picking up the ball, which is ironic because, as an oppo, you would think, we'll move him to the outside because then he's going to be the one that's going to get more receives. But ironically enough, they would when we would play in tournaments, they would have me go like they would transition the libero to the right side on serve receive, and then they would have me cover our outside because he was just such a phenomenal outside, right? But he couldn't pass to save his life, so they'd have me cover him, and then they'd have libero slide out in rotation just because it made more sense, and then I would just have to come in and do like a slide just if I wanted to get a ball. Of course, they ran mostly quicks down the middle with the middle blocker, or they just would feed the outside. So it's not like I got to see the ball a ton. It was mainly just, hey, just go up and block, just play really good passing game, make sure we can set up an offense. And that's kind of what transitioned a lot more than anything into volleyball within the sand was my passing. That's kind of one of the things I would say I'm the best at. Anyway, I won't get too far into the weeds on it. But yeah, I don't know. I love volleyball. I'm a big fan. I'd like to play it a little bit more lately. I've kind of dialed it back since I've been blessed enough for it to be successful, but it's a fun time. That's for sure. All right, let's go. We got a $10 donation. Brandon Marty, shout out to Brandon.
What's up, Brandon?
Brandon's always hooking us up, man. Shout out to Brandon as always. What are your thoughts on prices for Sun and Moon and the little drop in Sword and Shield?
Sun and Moon's become XY now. It's just going to thrive on the scarcity of the market at any given time. Whenever more boxes show up on the market, obviously it's going to have more drastic movements. You'll see downturns, but they're not going to be like crazy. But the reason you'll see such enormous spikes in price is because the market is being cleared out so quickly, and there's literally less than 5 boxes of a lot of those sets on the entire open market of eBay and TCGplayer. And then, when there's times when there's 10, 15, 20 available, you'll probably see a good amount more price competition, auctions ending lower. But then the buy it now listings probably won't sell because people just will stick to their price and just wait for the right buyer to come around, wait for all the auctions to kind of run their course and the market to stabilize. So I think when you get to that time in the hobby, those are going to be much more safe places to keep your money in the modern and the sealed when it gets older. But I think a lot of the most intense gains have been made. Although, in this market, everything's going to see intense gains. But I think those are more for you want to collect them and you also want to have something in your collection that rises in value steadily over time. But as far as most intense gains, I still think it could be in Scarlet Violet. And then, Sword and Shield, a lot of those things that have dropped, obviously Silver, Astral, Brilliant, still very, very cheap. Even Lost and Chilling have fallen down a little bit. But Evolving still super high. Fusion Strike still held up very well. There's opportunity there, but the closer you get to those like higher hundreds into the thousands, I would say the growth rate definitely slows down.
I mean, they're rebounding. I don't know if you saw LO's back up to 400 again. So
yeah, and they still have time, but like once you get to that closer to $1,000 mark, I think the growth rate definitely slows.
Oh no, I agree. I guess I'm more saying in terms of the little drop with Sword and Shield. Like, I wouldn't hold your breath. I would definitely take advantage of that drop. I think, everything Alex said, I agree with. I think to put it into simple terms, other than of course evolving, because evolving is, it's evolving. As prices on certain products continue to rise, then it obviously now has to make larger moves in order to make the same amount of marginal return. And so it starts to make less sense from like a volatility perspective if you're really wanting high upside to start going older, but it's going to be a lot more secure because the product itself is obviously going to be out of rotation. It's going to have proven itself over time. And so looking at Sun and Moon era boxes, and of course now looking into Sword and Shield era boxes, they're ones that are going to feel a lot safer. But then as they continue to rise over time, like Alex was saying, I think $1,000 is a pretty good kind of spot to point out. It starts to slow down from there. It'll still do well over time. It'll still go up. You're just not going to get the same amount of percentage gain in the same way as you would with some of these newer sets because they've got a lot more, upward mobility and demand as well. For one box at $200 is going to be a lot higher than a box at over $1,000 because some people can afford 200 where it prices other people out.
Yeah, and the last thing I'm going to add too is like if you're going to play in those higher dollar items, and especially the older items, it's people who like buy and collect and invest in vintage. They're probably going to be more used to it. But anyone who's like used to this current market, you're going to have this goes for all Pokemon, but you can't be emotional when it comes to those because the worst thing you can do is be emotional. And then like say we have a downturn and people need money and they're starting to dump some of their collection, and then all of a sudden you see Unified Minds instead of having 5, 6, 7 boxes on the market, now it's got 18, 20 boxes on the market and there's more competition and you have people auctioning. They're starting to auction every week and you're saying, oh my gosh, the auction prices are ending like $300 lower than what they were. Is it crashing? It's like, no, people need the money. Also in a time when demands drop, so things are ending lower than before. And what happens is, and this happens in vintage too, all those auctions dry up. And then all that's left are the buy it now listings that are $300-$400 more than the lowest auction went for. And everyone's trying to come to you saying, hey, the last few auctions ended at this. This is the market price. This is what I want to pay you. And you say, that's fine. You can wait for another auction, but I'm not taking that. My box costs this much. And eventually someone will come around when they get sick of waiting. They'll pay you for your box. And then, another one will sell and it'll reset the market price. And so like, that's what you see happen more with those older things. Because, the scarcity is going to eventually drive the market back up. Even though there will be, the short, time periods where the prices drop and people pay lower prices at auction or whatever. But as long as you're confident in the scarcity of it in the long term and you're not like emotional about the small price drops, just continue to hold through those times. You'll be fine.
Well, we can just quickly take this question before we take the super chat, just because it's kind of good. And follow-up question, is Cosmic Booster Box still a good buy for investing? I mean, you probably have seen Cosmic go up in price right now recently.
Pokey Plumber just bought a whole other case of it, so he thinks it is.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I think going back to what we said, it doesn't feel like right now is the best time to buy because the price just shot up so aggressively. But if you're looking at this from a long-term perspective, just like we were saying, volatility is not going to obviously be as high over the long-term length of the set, but it is one that you're going to feel a lot more confident being able to hold on that it will go up over time. It's not going to be like consistent, like every single month or every single year, it's going to go up 50%. Like it'll make its jumps, but it's just going to take a little bit longer. But like I said, we got another super chat. Brandon Marty again. I just bought a lot in both set eras. Dang. Brandon's cooking is what that means.
I mean, Brandon, dude. I mean, I know Brandon. He's got a long-term mindset. You'll be fine, man. Just like, look, if things downturn in like the whole hobby, like next year or 2 years or whatever, and maybe you see some more coming to the market and all that, like, and prices drop a little bit, dude, don't freak out. You'll be good long-term in those, I think.
No, dude. I mean, like I said, for myself, at least, like my long-term game plan is, as my position continues to grow, I'm going to start looking at older sets that I think are going to hold well, hold their value, and perform well over time. Because when it comes to and are going to cost more, obviously, because when it comes to general, space, it's something that is important to me to be able to not waste a lot of my square footage when it's so limited right now. I'd much rather, as my collection continues to climb, have a booster box case that's valued at over $6,000, because $1,000 a booster box, than one that goes for $600. Sure, there could be some high upside return, but when I'm paying for that space, I want it to work for me more so over the long term and take up less space. Next question. Man, why do I do this sometimes? I accidentally scroll all the way up.
I know, it does it automatically. I hate it.
Yeah, I was about to say, did I accidentally scroll up?
No, it does that does it on automatically.
That's annoying. All right, next question up. Dude, I literally just thought did I skip someone on accident? Oh, no, I found it. With SVIRs being pumped right now, is it time to focus on low to mid-tier Sword and Shield alt arts?
I don't know, man. After like the hype cycles have come and gone, I'm not a fan of going and like holding less like mid-tier hits. It's just, when you look back at like older eras, like you go to Sun and Moon, XY, and so on, Black and White, into like mid-era vintage, the majority of cards don't really, majority of singles don't perform all that well. Like, it's like I said, it's only like the handful, like the top, I don't know exact percentage, like let's just say top 10% of the era of cards that actually end up performing well long-term and see good sustained growth. And so, I'm not a fan of going and trying to dive in and buy all these like lower tier trainer galleries or lower tier alt arts. I feel like if the money moves back to those eras, they're going to go to the top stuff, the top Pokemon that everyone wants to collect once. You can definitely hit it big and get lucky here and there on a high flyer, but I'm not a huge fan of it.
So what are you telling me, Alex? You think I shouldn't buy 100 copies of Sandaconda, dude?
Dude, I pulled another one of those last night. It's like, you pull an alt art for somebody and you're happy it's an alt art, but at the end of the day, it's a Sandaconda.
Nah, I'm more angry than anything. Like I said before, man. We opened a lot of Fusion Strike in the shop. It was our number one most pulled alt art. We probably in total in the shop, from like, we'll say 1,000 packs, right? We probably got in total around 11 or 12 alt arts. About 7 of them were Sandacondas.
I believe it.
It was,
I've pulled like a Mew V, and I've pulled the Celebi V recently, but I've pulled like 3 Sandacondas over the last like few weeks. It's just what you pull.
Devastation. We pulled here. I know actually what we've pulled. We pulled the Celebi, we pulled the Espeon, we pulled the Mew, and then we pulled the Inteleon. Those were the 4 we pulled, and then after that, it was all Sandaconda, and I'm just like, dude.
Yeah, the Sandacondas are definitely. That's good to hear. Other people are having the same issue.
Dude, just absolute, just cuckery. Oh man, how bad will people get wrecked when they Razzie to pull? I don't know what he meant to say. How will people get wrecked when they Razzie to pull and currently printed IRs from SV crash in price? Do you know what he meant to say?
How are they going to get wrecked? Oh, maybe race to pull. I don't know. Here's the thing. I think the biggest problem in this hobby is we don't define things. Like, what's a crash defined as? Like, if things fall 25, 30%, is that a crash?
No.
Well, I mean, then I don't think things are going to crash Agent Crypto. If we're going to define a crash as like not 25, 30%, I don't know if a lot of these things are going to crash more than 25, 30%. So I would say, I guess I don't think a lot of them are going to crash.
Well, it's like if you look at traditional markets versus crypto. If traditional markets drops 10% in a day, to like 20% in a day. Like that's considered a crash. If that happens in crypto, that's just another Tuesday. Like,
oh yeah, in a day that'd be crazy. But like,
yeah.
I mean, here, let's say.
So I guess the point
like,
that I'm making is, the point that I'm making is when it comes to Pokemon, I look at it in the exact same regard. Like you can't really compare the two because it's such a more volatile market.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big believer in a lot of the random IRs, like the random Pokemon that just
easy to pull. That's what he was saying.
Oh, easy to pull.
How badly will people get wrecked when the easy to pull and currently printed IRs from SV crash in price?
Well, just understand when you're saying easy to pull, you're basically saying that like Trainer Gallery V and Trainer Gallery V Maxes are easy to pull because they're along the same lines as a lot of these IRs and some of these sets like Paldea and Paradox Rift. So they're not that easy to pull, I don't think.
I mean, I guess
specific ones. Like if you want the specific like Magikarp or specific like Groudon, I think they're one out of like 400 or 500 packs. Like that's not easy, especially as the packs and box prices get more expensive, and then they're even harder to grade. I don't know, man. I'm more bullish, I guess.
I did a stream once and I opened 1,000 packs on stream of Paldea and we didn't pull the Magikarp.
Like I said, I'll go down with this ship, and I'm not like investing heavy or anything, but like I truly believe these IRs might surprise people.
Yeah.
But hold on, don't get me wrong. They will come down in price. Don't send me all kind of stupid messages of like, you know, every time I say something, people will send me all these screenshots all the time. I get all these messages every time I wake up in the morning. Alex, you see this drop? You said, I'm like, no, look, they will come down. Fair play. But I still think they're going to hold up relatively well. I don't think they're going to crash and go all the way down to their old lows. And I think over time, because of the PSA 10, I think the PSA 10s are actually going to do really well.
I agree. Let's answer a couple questions and we'll kind of wrap it up here. Since everyone was obviously late on stream today, we kind of have to be a bit better about, you know, getting done on time.
SIRs. We're talking IRs. What SIRs are we bringing up, Kyle? Magikarp, Groudon, those are IRs.
Oh, man. I think this will be a good one. Man, I almost wonder if we just ended on this question. We'll do two. We'll do two questions and we'll end it on that. We'll take this one first and then we'll take the other one. Have you seen the half booster box 18 pack instead of 36? Do you guys think Pokemon is releasing smaller products since print in demand? Thanks.
That's a European product.
I was about to say.
That's always been a thing. That's not new.
Yeah, I was about to say. Joe asks, uncultured questions, $200 for any set MTG collector box a buy? I wouldn't say that. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have certain sets that obviously like got printed pretty heavily, and that's why you were able to get them for $200. But like, I'm not spending $200 on a set for a collector, especially considering that most of like the new sets that do have collectors that are that price, they're ones that didn't perform well. Because like for distro on most standard collectors, like the lowest I'm paying is like $180 a box. So and the one that just comes to mind, I don't even know what the price is of it, but the one I think of is Mirza Karloff Manor, and that one had like a horrible release. That one has performed really well, and they haven't even done a reprint for it in terms of collectors, right? Because it's part of the newer block, and they haven't been reprinting nearly as much. And even without the reprint, like it just is not performing super well at all. Let me see, how much is the collector going for? I mean, yeah, the collector literally it's going for $200. Yeah, you're much better off if you're wanting to invest in Magic. In my personal opinion, you're much better off going the Commander route. Commander just feels so much safer. Because Commander feels safer because the Commander format, like, it's just going to be in rotation forever because Commander is just timeless. Not to say that, you know, once a set goes out of rotation, that collector boxes drop, because there's always going to be collectability with the artworks for some of the serialized and other cards you can pull. But, like, you've got so many instances where commander cards are just, people want the commander decks because they're just super collectible. They're super fun to play with, and they would much rather, build around a foundation of a collector box than try and completely like build from scratch. Because for me, like if I have a deck and I'm like, all right, I want this to be my commander. If I at least have, 40 cards that are already going to be included in the commander deck, and I can go sell off some of the other ones and make some money off those cards and then kind of reforge my deck, it actually, for me personally, it's a lot easier than having to then go pick out 99 cards and then go buy all 99 cards. Because you are getting a little bit of a value buying these commanders compared to the actual card values within, because, people a lot of times want to buy one individual card. And so you're able to go get a much better of a premium buying that sealed product because the singles are just going to be worth so much more. That's just my personal opinion. And if you are saying, well, I don't want to get into collectors, if it's me, I'm going and looking at the sets that I think have performed well because people just really love the flavor of them, and it's just a fun set. I would say right now it's expensive, but if you're going to do it, it's got to be Bloomburrow. Bloomburrow has just been such a strong set. Like, it's got some really good cards in it. It's got really good art designs in it. It's a fan favorite, I would say, arguably right now. Don't get me wrong, Bloomburrow has significantly climbed over the past, let me look at the chart right now. It was 220 in September, and now it's going for 360. So it's gone up almost 100% since September, but like,
just buy them all.
It's good, man. It's good. I like it.
Just buy them all at 200.
Yeah, buy them all at 200.
Hey, in Magic or Pokemon, you have a better chance than buying all the S&P stocks. I pulled up a chart right here. 307 of the 500 S&P stocks are actually down right now. With the worst one, the 500th, right, being or 30%.
I will say
if you're throwing a dart at a board at any Pokemon set and you hold it, or any S&P, any stock in the entire S&P index, you actually have a better chance of hitting a set in Magic collectors or Pokemon boxes that are actually going to perform better. That's crazy.
I will say, though, you do, like I said, there's a reason why I like the Commander better. You do have to be a little bit more careful with the collectors, because some of them will not see any price movement for a certain period of time where other ones will go crazy. So you have to be a lot more selective. Who knows? That might change, obviously, as the product continues to diminish in the amount being printed for collectors. That might change. But also at the same exact time, I'd much rather put my money in something that I feel a lot more confident is going to do well over time. Because if you look at most of the Commander decks, historically, they've performed so well. They've just performed so well, especially in this current block. The current block of these Commander decks is crazy. Like, seeing what Ixalan's done, Bloomburrow's done, like, I can just keep going. But all right, I got our final question for us. I think this is a good one. We didn't touch on it. I think this is one we should definitely touch a little bit. Final question. What is your guys' perception of tag grading? I'm seeing ads on tag 10s having higher sold bids versus PSA 10 for some cards. Seem like they're gaining traction on advertising.
I don't want to talk about this.
Alex doesn't even want to talk about it?
Dude, there's been so much drama created with videos or live streams that I've had, and people pissed off that are a part of tag, and I don't even want to get into all of it, man. Just I have friends on both sides of this whole thing, and I don't even want to get in the middle of it anymore. I don't want to give any opinions. Look, I've been very publicly against CGC from the very beginning. I even nicknamed it the Cabal Grading Company, CGC. And they've continued to not disappoint in the terrible things they've done for the hobby. So I'll publicly say I would not send one card to CGC. But with tag PSA, look, I have no strong opinion. The tag's got a lot of awesome ideas that they have, come down the pipe. If they can pull it off, that's yet to be seen. Yeah, it could definitely be changing for the hobby. But at the same time, it's really hard to knock off the Goliath, and PSA could be innovating and changing at the same time. And it's really hard to convince an entire hobby of collectors to start using a new slab over a few sales or a few just some recent price movement on certain things. So I have no opinion one way or the other. All I would say is just be careful. Don't allocate too many funds one way or the other right now, because in this market, everything's going crazy. And so don't take any data points of anything, not just grading companies, but anything right now is kind of like gospel. Like let everything kind of take its time over the next couple of years to really settle and see where everything's really going to be. That's my take.
Yeah, my kind of biggest fear on tag is it's all just a short-term stunt. And what I mean by that is like they're pouring so much money into marketing right now, and there's so much that's just being put on to general people that are, whether it be informed or uninformed, of, oh, tag, you can go sell the tag item for the same price as a PSA 10. Like they're trying to put themselves in the position of giving the illusion that you should go grade with them because the value that you're going to hold with tag is going to be equal to that of PSA, which just maybe you can cherry pick, but it's not going to be that consistent, especially for such a new company right now. And they're going and trying to also as well pump a bunch of money into these influencer types and have them market for them to give them some semblance of credibility. It just smells really fishy, and it honestly feels like it could be a position where you're going to have a lot of people get hurt, because you could easily see this being something where they just try and take this company, grow it as much as they can, pumping it as much as they can just for a buyout to happen. And then all of a sudden you hear a merger of tag, or you hear something happen with tag, and then everyone's kicked to the curb. And I understand people are making the argument like, oh, well, I can always crack my tag slab and I can send it into PSA. And obviously, there's always that option. I'm not totally SOL, but it's like, that shouldn't be your mindset. Like if you're going into grading tag, I don't know. It just feels very fishy to me. And I don't see it as a company that is really concerned about actually being here for the long term. I could be wrong, right? I could be off. And if I'm wrong, then fantastic. But I don't know. It's something that there's just the red flags that concern me.
I don't even want to talk about it. Like here, they're doing something right. They got all of our podcasts talking about it and people asking questions. So obviously their marketing is working.
Yeah, here we are, man. All right, let's end it there. We went for an hour and a half. Absolutely crushed it, Alex. How do we feel?
Oh, dude, this was a great stream, man.
How do you feel about the fact that everyone showed up late to our stream today, dude?
Right? What's wrong with you guys? We were early. Everyone was late. I'm going to call everyone out. Let's just go down the list. Pokey Plumber, I just saw you get here, man. So you were late. Dead Lion, I didn't see you here at what was it, 1:55. Your average player, were you here? I don't know. Jelly Pete, yeah, we're going to call you guys out, just like you call us out for being late every week.
Atomic just showed up too, man. Jeez Louise,
it's the equivalent of like a comic coming to your place of work and heckling you.
Yeah, that's right.
You're all late.
Yeah, right. So stupid.
No, man, it was a good talk. I think we covered a lot of good topics, and there's a lot. You know what? I was happy today because there's a lot happening in the hobby, and so we didn't have to come up with any topics. The topics provided themselves, so that's good.
Heck yeah, baby. All right, folks, make sure you leave a like, comment down below, subscribe. It really helps the YouTube channel out, as always, as well. If there's ever a spot opening up on the wholesale program, make sure to check back. Links down in the description below for that. And then Alex, he's streaming, baby, 5 days a week. You know where to find him.
Come by tonight, guys. Well. You could win one of these 20 PSA 10 slabs.
Oh, dude. And those slabs, they're going to be rare. People need to start buying the 10s now.
Dude, there's some heat in here, dude. I'm just going to tell you right now. You want here? I'll show you some. You want me to spoil some of it?
Oh,
here, man, I'll spoil some of these. There's some major fire. We got Lycia's Appeal in a 10. We got the Hydreigon from Prismatic in a 10, right? We got some alt arts. Come on. Come by tonight, 6 p.m. Central.
Heck yeah, baby. All right, guys. Hopefully you all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. We'll see. Oh man. Wait, hold on one second. I might need to make this announcement now.
Uh-oh.
I am not going to be able to make it next Tuesday. I forgot. I should probably let people know that now.
Oh no!
I'm leaving for Italy.
He's gonna be a week late.
I'm leaving for Italy, guys. So next Tuesday I won't be able to stream.
Italia.
But I should be good to go the following Tuesday after. We might have to stream a little bit differently though, just because it'll all be on a different time. But I'm literally flying the night of the 3rd and getting in like late on the 4th. So I will
just a vacation.
Yeah, just a vacation. So
just enjoy your vacation. We'll pick it up the week after.
No.
They'll be all right.
I stream in Japan still, so
they'll be all right.
I'll stream once in Italy. We'll call it good after that. But yeah, I like to take at least 1 or 2 vacations a year just to kind of chill. And yeah, Italy will be my first time going to Europe, so I'm excited. So, but yeah, so not next Tuesday, but I'll make sure to stream the following Tuesday.
Get Mason to cover your shift on the stream.
Yeah, right.
Cover your shift.
Yeah, thanks, brother. All right, see y'all soon. Peace.